She's going to talk about sleep primarily, and I think some other things. But so for those that are not aware or not, but Mel during this time will be onboarding us our coach for us. So I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to kind of ease her into. I didn't want to kind of like not have her start, her date. So over the next couple of weeks, she'll be kind of taking control and giving you guys some insight and some coaching tips as well as myself. So you don't have to hear me talk every single time either as much. So Mel, you can kind of get started. And if you want to also, add anything else as far as for an introduction, that's fine. If you want to jump right in, that's because obviously I know, you probably getting familiar with everybody on the calls anyway. If you want to jump right in, that's fine too.
Yeah, we can jump right into it. So I'm going to be talking about sleep. Just as a precursor, what I like to explain to people is when you're looking to fix your sleep, you're basically looking to counterbalance the damage that we've done to it in daily life. So what we're looking at is your body is used to regulating its own sleep because back before we had electricity, back before we had, iPhones or anything like that, you regulated your own sleep just from the light sources that were around and the temperature. So towards the middle of the day, even if you look at the way people's energy levels are, right? Towards the middle of the day, as the sun is highest in the sky, people tend to be more alert at around 11 a.m. to noon. Towards the end of the day, as it got colder rather, as the light started to recede, that's when people would start to calm down a little bit. And then people would go to sleep because we didn't have light. We didn't have any electricity. So all the stuff that we're going towards is kind of trying to, in a sense, mimic that natural biorhythm that we had that, in effect, is kind of ruined by modern society. So I'm going to screen share because I have a little, where are we? Here we go. Cool. I made a chart. I like charts. Can you guys see the chart?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. So I like charts because you can focus on one column at a time. So if you guys want to screenshot this and break it down week by week, I usually focus on one thing at a time. Realize that if you're trying to change, sleep is, you're spending a third of your life sleeping. So you're trying to change a third of your life. You're not going to make it perfect in a day, a week, even a month. This is something that I'm 25. That means I have 25 years worth of sleep dysfunction to correct. It's not going to happen in a couple weeks. So what I usually do with my clients is we'll start on the first T, right, which is timing, spend maybe a month on that. Once I feel like they have a good grasp on it, move on to the next one. And don't feel like you have to take on the entire column at once. You can do one bullet point at once. So timing just refers to the timing of the stuff that you're doing and the stimulation that you're putting into your body. So that could be chemical. I'm a caffeine junkie. So for me, caffeine, anything caffeinated, even tea, right? Tea has a little bit of caffeine. Physical stimulation, if you're someone that works out later in the evening. Some people, if I work out in the evening, I'm out like a light right afterwards. I know some people that are the exact opposite. And for them, that physical stimulation keeps them up. And mental stimulation. I know people that seem to think that my bedtime is 10 p.m. I can answer stressful emails until 9:59 p.m. and then go right to bed at 10. And the moment my head hits the pillow, it's an on-off switch. And it's not, like we talked about, right? We're used to the light slowly receding throughout the day. We're used to the temperature slowly changing throughout the day. So it's not a light on-off switch. If you guys have ever seen the switches that you can control the dimmers in maybe like a living room or a dining room, right? It's more like that. It's a dial. It's not an on-off switch. So super easy steps that you can do for that is cutting off the caffeine earlier. I also recommend tapering the caffeine intake, right? Once you've built an insane tolerance, something that I've done is you don't want to quit cold turkey. I get migraines if I try to do that. You might also get a little bit of withdrawal symptoms, but you want to learn to not be super dependent on it, especially right now we're in quarantine, really good time to taper back on the caffeine intake. If you do need it, or if you're still working because you're an essential worker, cut it off a little bit earlier. I know, John, I think you cut it off at around like 1 or 2, right? Something like that?
Yeah, I usually have like I've been having like a cup of coffee with like some protein powder at like between 12 and 1, depending on, my consultations and stuff. So usually at kind of midday, I really try not to go too much past 1. It does happen on occasion, but I try to like use like, 1 p.m. is kind of my marker personally. Mel, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like caffeine has like an 8-hour or so like half-life.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of think about like when you are going to go to bed. So like for me, I usually try to go to bed at like 9 o'clock. So I know if I have like a cup of coffee at like 1, the caffeine should be like out of my system by the time like I'm physically in bed. So that's kind of like my logic behind that time. So everyone's going to be different. So that's something to consider as well when you're trying to figure out like when you should cut off that caffeine.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing I don't think people realize is that once that initial caffeine rush is done, doesn't mean it's out of your system. And I come from a family, everyone's a caffeine addict, and they're like, well, I can have a cup of coffee and go right to sleep immediately afterwards. And that's great. But it is actually chemically changing the quality of your sleep. If you were to stick probes into your brain waves would be different. So just because you can fall asleep with your current caffeine content and your current caffeine timing doesn't mean it's not interrupting your sleep. You can get sleep and it be crappy sleep. So that's something to keep in mind. Another super easy thing to do, if you guys don't know how to do it, I can definitely walk you through how to do it, is setting the blue light timer on your phone. So there's different kinds of light that you can take in, primarily through electronics, so TVs, cell phones, tablets. Blue light is the kind that basically tells your body, hey, it's still daytime. What do you do when your body thinks it's still daytime? You want to stay awake. So I set my blue light timer to 6 p.m. All that does is it looks a little more yellow, so it's not like it's ruining the video quality. But what that is going to do is now after 6 p.m., I'm not getting any blue light from my electronics. I also have a blue light app installed on my laptop, so that way after 6 p.m. I'm not getting any of the blue light. So that's something that's pretty easy to do on iPhones. If you have an Android, it should still have that feature. If not, you can also get, they have screen covers that have the blue light filters on them as well. And then $10 on Amazon. Actually, I think I have them. They're not very fashionable. Yeah, here we go. They're like super cheap plastic. Blue light glasses. So I don't have a blue light filter on my TV. If for whatever reason, it's not ideal, right? Going back to that mental stimulation, it's not ideal to watch, like a murder documentary before bed, but I know some people are super into their Netflix. So you can mitigate that damage by using blue light glasses. They're like $10 on Amazon, super easy. And it's going to have the same effect of blocking that blue light. So you're still getting to watch your TV. It just won't be as damaging. So before I move on to the next two, which are a little easier, does that make sense to you guys, where kind of what you're plugging into your body at different times of day is going to have a different effect? Anything that's confusing? I talk too fast. I need to take a breath. No? Liz nodding? Cool.
No, good.
Awesome. So that's usually the hardest one. And I think it's also a societal thing. You open up Instagram and everything's about coffee. You always want to be on the go. We praise constant productivity and we demonize downregulation. We demonize relaxing. We demonize, resting. Resting is bad. And now we're in a state where, well, all we can do is rest because we're stuck in our houses and we don't know how to do that anymore. So I think the easiest thing to do is to start to see what you're stimulating yourself with throughout the day, mental, physical, chemical, especially now, even if it makes you feel a little drowsy, cutting back from the caffeine. If you don't have to go to work, if you're not an essential worker, now's the time to play with it. So going on to the next one, temperature. This one, everyone has their preferences, so that's why there's a bit of a range, and the studies have shown a ton of different things. I'm the kind of person that when I sleep, I want it to be an icebox, but I'm like the end of the spectrum. I want my number would be like 40 on here, but the ideal temperature, according to research, is between 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Your body wants a cooler temperature, and that's going back to, again, back before we had shelter, back before we had electricity and modern stuff. Towards the end of the day, as it got darker, it also got cooler. So that was one way that your body knew, all right, it's coming close to nighttime. I need to start relaxing, toning everything down so I can go to sleep. So people in hotter rooms tend to have a harder time reaching the same deep, restful sleep that people in colder rooms do. This is honestly, I think, the easiest thing to take care of. Open window, AC. I have usually my AC, the fan is circulating. That way I'm always getting fresh air in my room. You can have a lighter blanket, or you can actually just sleep with no clothes on. And actually, a lot of studies have shown that not changing anything but sleeping without clothes allows your body to regulate its temperature a lot more easily. So even if you didn't change the temperature of your room, just not wearing clothing has its benefits. So that's something that, super easy steps. Just don't wear your pajamas unless it's frigid, then, but in the summer, that's definitely something you can get away with a little bit more. And I think that's the easiest thing to implement is just changing your sleep hygiene a little bit in terms of maybe wearing shorts instead of pants, maybe not wearing socks, maybe wearing a tank instead of a shirt if you don't want to get totally nude, right? But just altering how much covering you have so that your body can regulate that. And then the third thing, which I think I like to have people do timing and temperature first, because the moment we talk about thought process, the moment you tell someone your brain is sabotaging something physically, no one wants to be told that they're thinking wrong. No one wants to be told that their thought process is kind of sabotaging their success, because most people take that as like an ego type thing. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to change their thought process. So the easiest things to start with is always the timing and temperature, because those are literally, they just require building of habit, but they don't require a whole lot of introspection. So if you guys really don't know where to start, I would start with timing or temperature. Once those two are locked down, or if you're someone who you know that your sleep is entirely being destroyed by stress and emotional stress, that's where the thought process comes in. So what you do right before bed is programming what your subconscious is going to play to you on repeat. So if you've ever watched a movie and then you have a very bizarre dream with bits and pieces of that movie and it doesn't really make sense, but that movie's involved in there, right? So whatever your brain takes in, it's going to keep pumping to itself as you sleep. So John talks a lot about the breathing exercises. That's an easy way of down regulating. Again, calming your body down, toning it down, and slowly turning that dial down so that you can go to sleep. But another thing that I'm a big fan of is the visualization and the journaling, which is why I leave this for last. The moment you get to visualization and journaling, people think it's a little too hoo-ha and out there. But this stuff is recommended over and over again for a reason. It works. And journaling doesn't necessarily mean, dear diary, today was hard. Like, there's something, I'm blanking on his name, Craig Ballantyne. He talks about something called a brain dump. And at the end of the day, you just kind of, everything that's on your mind, good, bad, I have to do this tomorrow, this happened to me and I can't stop thinking about it, this lady was mean and it's just in the back of my head, whatever it is, you dump it all on a piece of paper. And that physical process of writing everything down, and I recommend writing, not typing, it's very different neurologically to type as opposed to write. Writing everything down and putting it into a physical form kind of pulls it out of your brain, where if you combine that with the breathing, so a brain dump, it's called brain dump and then breathing, you're basically pulling everything out of your brain and then calming your body down. And that's become something that I've been kind of playing with. It definitely is weird for me because I'm the kind of person that if something bad happens or if I have something that's been bothering me throughout the day, I don't want to re-bring it up. But counterintuitively, I have found that dumping it out, almost pulling it out of my brain and putting it onto the paper, all right, it's there, it's done. Now I give myself permission to release myself from this stuff and go to sleep. And again, it sounds a little hoo-ha, new age, mindset stuff. And I'm the least kind of that person. I'm usually very skeptical of that stuff, but that's something that I've found works really well for me. And then the simplest thing, if that's really a little too far out there for you, is just do something that relaxes you. I know Liz is always knitting. Maybe that's the kind of thing you want to do before bed is knit. For me, I would stab myself in the eye with a needle. That sounds so frustrating to me. I would not do that. For me, something that relaxes, and that's the hard part for me, is something that relaxes me is usually has something to do with electronics. So it's like, well, where do you draw the line between relaxing you and going back to timing, which is stop looking at your phone. So that's where my blue light filters come in, where maybe I can play a game of solitaire, unwind, and then not do that damage terribly. So you kind of want to find a balance. No one's sleep is ever going to be perfect. But if we can mitigate the damage of modern life, you're going to see a massive improvement. And remember that, you might not need all this stuff. For me, my room's always an icebox. Temperature is, done. For me, the column that I need to work on is the thought process column. For you, it might be the timing. It might be all three. But I don't want anyone to look at the chart and think, wow, I need to fix 27 things because I'm really broken. It might just be one or two things that you really need to dial in. There's a reason I didn't put supplements in here. If you it's not something you're super into, we can definitely talk about it if that's something that anyone, has a question on. But I definitely think we jump to supplements right away when most people's bodies, there are cases that are outside of the spectrum. Most people's bodies innately have the ability to regulate a circadian rhythm if you push it in the right direction. You don't need the supplement. So I can definitely recommend some stuff, some brands that I've tried, but I would always 1000% go with the habits first because A, it's cheaper, but B, you don't want to rely on external factors, if that makes sense. So before I babble on, does anybody, I see is that a chat box? How do you open this? Oh, stop share. There we go.
I was just putting some stuff in
Oh,
there.
okay. I wasn't sure if those questions or not. Oh, okay, cool. You have the blue light. Yeah. Yeah, so that pretty much sums it up. Questions on that? Throw a lot of information at you guys. Or if John has anything to add on that.
Yeah, I'll definitely add some stuff, but I'd say, Mel, if you can, I'm not sure if you'll be able to do it. You may need to send it to me, but I was going to say if you can make that document like a PDF, and then we could put that in the file section for you guys. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Some of the stuff's a little bit dated, but yeah, there's a lot of like resources in there. So we can use that to continue. So you guys have like a handle on, if you do miss something, we'll put like any type of important document in there. So I think that's a really good one. I thought that was really the 3 T's, really easy to remember. Other things as far as considerations for bigger guys, I'll just say this, someone like maybe Brad, this might be for you, or some of the bigger guys like, Brandon and Sammy, get a sleep study, look into getting the CPAP machine. That was like tremendous. It's not going to apply to everyone in the group, but I think if you're like over like 200 pounds, you have a thicker neck, it's definitely worth considering. Now, smaller, women could have it too. It really depends on it. So if you're in bed for more than 7.5 hours, and you're still not feeling rested, like I would consider getting maybe a sleep study is not possible right now, but definitely put that on your list for sure. And then I'd also consider like if you're getting up a lot at night, like kind of going to the bathroom and things like that, I would also consider like, when's your last meal, like when you're cutting off your water, especially if you're doing something like me, I'm having a gallon a day. I take that most of my water earlier in the day for that reason. I still sometimes drink a little bit too late, and I will get up at night here and there to go to the bathroom. So consider like also when you're cutting off your water as well. That's like a really simple thing. Another really simple thing is like an eye mask, light exposure. Make sure your room is dark. I think other than that, I think Mel hit all the points. Making sure your room is dark and cool, and waterproof as you can. But other than that, I think she hit like really a lot of good points. I'll stop the recording at this point. I think that's a good place to stop that.